Hi, my name is Pip Coombs. This is my debut novel, The Hunted. This is the first book in the Phoenix series. The second book will be coming up very soon, and I will announce more information about that soon. I'm also a physiotherapist in my day job. So what I'm actually going to talk to you about today is about writing with a learning disability. I've talked to heaps of people who have various learning difficulties, such as what I have, which is dyslexia, and that often they enjoy writing stories, they enjoy listening to stories, and they wish they could write their own, and they just think that they can't because they have a learning difficulty. And I'm here to tell you, you can. When I was growing up, I used to get taken to lots of different specialists. A lot of them early on were allergy specialists and asthma specialists, and I've had lots of various health issues over the years and have continued to do so as an adult, which has been fun. But I also had dyslexia. My brother had dyslexia as well. My dad has dyslexia. And in each of us, it has presented a little bit differently. So I am really terrible with maths. It's just not my forte. But a lot of that is also down to interest. So generally, I'm terrible with things that I'm not very interested in. With writing, I've always really enjoyed doing it, but I wasn't always very good at it. I was good at telling stories, but not very good at writing them down. Even now, even though I've had heaps of treatment for dyslexia and I've come a long way, particularly when I handwrite, I leave like letters off the end of words. I rarely cross my T's. So for someone to come in and actually read my handwritten work is not always a lot of fun. So thank God for the improvements in technology and spell check. So in terms of my struggles with dyslexia, I had issues with sequencing. So I really struggled to get the order of events correct and to explain the order of events when writing something down. So you could also give me pictures and I could theoretically be able to tell a story based on what order the pictures should come in based off a narrative, and I just couldn't do that. So I would put the pictures in all sorts of weird orders and not see that they actually had a particular sequence that they needed to come in for the story to make sense. So for years, when I mostly was in primary school, I used to go to a particular educator once a week who would then spend time with me doing things that helped me learn sequencing. I don't actually remember a lot of it, except that I hated going there. Just because it was like extra homework and I didn't really like the lady all that much, and she had a weird house and, all of those sorts of things that a kid notices. But according to my mum, anything I'd written prior to seeing her in about year 4, year 5, they just couldn't make any sense from it. There were just too many errors and it just didn't have a flow to it. The sequence to any story made absolutely no sense. And then by the time I finished primary school and went into high school, she had actually ironed out a lot of those kinks, to the point where now I can quite happily write a story with a plot that makes sense, with a sequence of events that actually makes sense. From my perspective, the thing that's important to understand is that just because you have a learning disability doesn't mean that you're stupid. I've never felt that way, but I know that there are a lot of people out there who do. I always knew that I had a good brain that worked well. It's just that I just am not so fantastic at certain things, and in some elements you just kind of have to go, look, that's just not something I'm fantastic at. Maybe I can find somebody who can help me with that, and that's where editors come in, because like the fine details of grammar, not my forte, never will be. That's just part of the dyslexia. That stuff just never stuck in my head. So the way it presents for me now is that when I write in, especially if I'm really in the flow of things and things are coming out really quickly, I tend to write in a stream of consciousness style, and my sentences tend to be very, very, very long. So when I then come back and read it later, often those sentences actually make perfect sense to me, but to somebody else reading like my basic draft, they wouldn't have a clue what I was trying to say, because it should be like 7 sentences and there should be like 45 commas in there that just aren't in there. but for my brain, that works and that makes sense. But the only way I can actually edit that out, because I can't see it myself if I read it back, is to actually put down the manuscript or whatever it is that I'm working on and step away from it for quite a considerable time. So I mean, like, leave it alone for months so that my brain is completely cold to that story by the time I come back to read it. Because then I come to this enormous mammoth sentence that needs some serious editing, and then I can see this gigantor sentence that really should be 7 different sentences. And even then, I still don't trust myself to catch everything, so that's why I pay an editor. When you're writing with a learning disability, a lot of it comes down to learning what areas you're not so fantastic in and learning ways to combat that. So as I said, I put my manuscript away for a few months and I walk away from it and then I come back to it. Obviously, the more you do of it, the better you get at it. So with the second book in the Phoenix series and the third book of the Phoenix series, as I'm going through and editing the story structure, I'm seeing now where there are things that are missing that I might need to add, or where I might need to thicken up. I'm seeing that more. I'm also seeing more just general editing errors and fixing them that I wouldn't have seen with the first manuscript. I also see common spelling errors, or the words I am inclined to use a lot, and sort of starting to pick them up and starting to change them. And that is just a side effect of writing, and doing it more and more and more, and learning more and more, and seeing the errors more and more, and learning it through editing my own work repeatedly. And some things I don't think I would have picked up having not had an editor come through and comb over it first and saying, hey, do you realize you use these 3 words all the time? And then me going, oh yeah, I actually do. I had noticed one myself, but two other ones I hadn't noticed at all, because in my brain just went, yeah, that makes total sense. So if you're writing with a learning disability, it doesn't mean that you can't write a story. It doesn't mean you can't write a great story. It just means that you need to learn where your weak points are and try and find a way around them. So all the feedback I've gotten from heaps of people who've read the book is that they really enjoyed the story. They want to know what happens in number 2, and the beta readers for number 2 have then fed back that they really enjoyed the progression of the story, and they now want to know what happens in number 3. So it's not as if my learning disability has affected their experience of the book at all, because I paid an editor to make sure that I got everything that I needed to get out of there. That would have been affected by my dyslexia. Believe me, I have asked my readers and my beta readers to tell me if they see any plot holes or anything that doesn't make sense, or any ridiculous sentences, or if they noticed any word usages over and over and over again, to see if I have fallen into a pattern and just haven't realized it. And they haven't said that they're there. So they've all said that they really enjoyed the story, that it flowed really nicely, and basically that they really enjoyed the plot. And so I know that I'm getting better and better at these things, but I have been practicing writing for years. So I think one of the ways I got really a significant change in the way I wrote was obviously practice. I've worked on stories for years. Most of them were crap, and they're either deleted somewhere or they're stored God knows where on my computer, never to be opened again. But I had to start doing a lot of marketing, writing type content for my day job, which is a physiotherapist. So I have to be able to explain concepts to people, explain back pain to people, explain neurological issues to people, and have it make sense. So I had to find a way to edit my own content. I had to find a way to make sense. I had to find a way to overcome some of the issues that come with a learning disability. And that learning disability obviously affected me as I was going through university. So where some of my friends just had incredible abilities to memorize things, or their math skills were amazing, I was sitting there more going, well, I would never assess someone by working out their biomechanics and telling them they needed to hit a volleyball with 5 newtons in a southwest direction, and then that way they wouldn't have injured themselves. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So I had to come at it from more of a practical perspective. I had to just take time and learn and memorize the anatomical attachments, and as I have gone through my schooling and university and just life in general, I learnt that I'm an audio learner. So I would record a lot of things onto a cassette tape when I was in primary school and early years of high school, and then I would just listen to them as I fall asleep at night, and then they go in. So I used to do the same thing when I was learning my anatomy stuff. I used to just read it out loud to myself, and eventually it would go in. But in terms of how I learnt, it had to be either coming in a way that I understood, which was in an audio medium, or I had to feel it. It had to be real. So just to read it in a book is not enough for me unless I'm really interested in it. Then I can take it in. But often when I read, I will read the same page about 1,000 times and take absolutely nothing in from it, which is why I prefer audiobooks to regular books for me, because I take in like 80% of the story at least versus like 10% if I sit and read. I just find the concentration required to actually physically sit down and read a book is also much higher. And obviously when I'm working a 50-hour week, I'm more tired at the end of the week, and I just don't have that extra brain power to allocate. And why would I when I can have it in a format that is more acceptable to my brain? Basically, the moral of the story is that if you have a learning disability, don't let that stop you from writing if writing is what you enjoy doing. The more you write, the better you will get at it, and the more you will start to identify issues with your own writing. And everybody has issues with their own writing. Everybody has words that they use excessively, or an inadequate vocabulary, or they're not very good at editing their own work. Everybody has their own issue. You just need to learn what is your battle as someone with a learning disability. So as I said, mine was sequencing. So I work really hard on making sure that I have my plot points all plotted out, that everything that everybody does makes sense, that I have a really strong idea of who each character is, what their emotional arc is, what their overall arc is going to be, and how that would integrate with this person and how that person would then react to this. And I literally have everything plotted out and everybody's strategies plotted out, because otherwise I might miss something, because that's a weak point for me, even though I've done heaps of work on it. And I have made damn sure that I cover each of those plot points so that the reader's experience is not affected by my learning disability. And the older I've gotten, the more I've worked on these things, the less they've become an issue. So there is heaps of ways you can overcome your own issues. Like some people find using color when they edit really helps them focus and stay focused on what areas need change, whose plot point it is, whose point of view it is, and how you follow through on that. Some people are really good with reading things out. I'm better at reading off an actual like printed format, not off the computer. I don't pick as much off the computer as I do off the printed version. That being said, the more I'm doing it, the better I'm getting at the computer version. But you just need to identify where your weak points are and work out if that's something you can actually overcome on your own, or if not. Like for me, there are just spelling things that will never come easily to me because that is part of my dyslexia. But that being said, that is what editors are for. If you want to write, then write. But you need to understand that you need an editor. Everybody needs an editor, but if you have a learning disability, you need an editor, because you need somebody to actually flag those issues for you. And if nobody flags those issues for you, you can't learn. And it's totally fine to fuck things up, and it's totally fine to make mistakes, and for them to come back and say, hey, look, the plot in the story, it kind of needs a little bit of work. There are holes here, here, and here, and here, because you learn much more from your failures than you do from your successes. I have learned so much from each manuscript that I have written, and you will continue to learn the whole way along. You just need to accept that it's never going to be perfect. Even if you didn't have a learning disability, even if you didn't have some sort of whatever going on in your life that's affecting your writing, just do it and keep doing it. And the more you do it, the better you will get at it. But try and work out what areas you're not so fantastic at, and see if there is somebody who can help you with all those areas, such as an editor. The Hunted is available everywhere now. You can get it in Kindle format. You can get it on Apple Books, the Book Depository, Amazon, everywhere, you name it. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram and Twitter, which is @PipCoombs, and don't forget to like this video and hit subscribe to my channel.